We can't be tight when we start, you know?
Keep it tight.
I mean, we got to keep it tight, but we can't be tight.
I know what you mean.
We got to...
Sorry. I got to pick this up. I couldn't see it. I turned up the brightness, but I still couldn't see. Do it one more time.
3, 2, 1. What's the deal?
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 Yo, what's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
Hey, what's the deal?
What's good, everybody? I'm Steve Discourse.
What up, y'all? It's your girl, Jay Callie.
Back with another episode of What's the Deal? And as we teased last week, we're going to get into the Green New Deal and climate change a little bit.
Also, why do you seem like you're getting so many spam phone calls? It's like a million a day. I just can't deal.
It's so many. Amazon on Valentine's Day threw a tantrum and broke up with New York City.
And apparently Trump called another state of emergency. Okay.
But first, we got to start with terrible news. We got another mass shooting.
I know. I thought that America was kind of over this thing. Not over it completely, because there's always going to be trauma, gun violence, mass shootings. But yeah, we just talked about a mass shooting a little while ago, and here we are back at it again. Yesterday in Aurora, there was another mass shooting at a water plant. A 45-year-old man by the name of Gary Martin, who was fired from that job. Apparently, he went back in there to inquire about getting his job back. They did not give him the answer he wanted to hear. He had a gun, and he was just like, okay, well, everybody got to die today then. And he just started shooting everybody. Apparently, the police were called at 1:24. They arrived on the scene by 1:28, which is a really good response time. But he started shooting at cops the moment they walked through the door. 5 cops were shot and injured. Another cop suffered from a really bad knee injury. 5 people are dead and 6 people injured. So I'm really tired of talking about this stuff.
Yeah, and this was the day after Valentine's Day, which was the anniversary of the Parkland school shooting.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, if you guys haven't heard me say this yet, or some people are tired of hearing me say it, and if I haven't convinced you enough yet, I mean, we gotta do something about guns. But he did this with a handgun.
Right.
We also got to do something about the mental health. We gotta take a serious, we need the entire country, the whole federal government, state, city governments. We need a massive coordinated effort to really get at understanding what is going on in our society in this day and age that is making this seem like the thing to do.
I think when we say we got to get, it's one thing, and we know we need to get a handle on military grade weapons falling into the hands of your average civilian, because I don't think that's a thing that should be happening at all. But there also does need to be some pretty strict regulations on handguns, because they kill you just the same. So it's not like, oh, let's police and govern military weapons and not handguns. We actually just need to police weapons of mass destruction or weapons of human destruction, period. And yes, like you said, the mental health piece is really important. I would really love to talk more deeply about it on this show. Honestly, I think we could do a whole series on it.
Yeah, we probably could in a lot of angles that we see it manifesting. But,
yeah.
I mean, this is obviously the most public and most problematic way. Not obviously, and not the most necessarily. It's all complicated. But to me, yeah, when we have these mass shootings, that's what I go to first and foremost. I go, this person had serious problems. And the gun was a manifestation or a tool to act out on those problems, but regulating those guns is never going to be enough, I don't think. So I think it's, like you said, a combination of both. But to me, what are we going to do? I don't know.
I always feel so torn. I don't know what stage I'm in life right now where I'm looking at things from my perspective. I do know. I just figured it out. I'm not going to say it on air. Just looking at things from my perspective, but then also being like, but let's peek at it from this perspective too, because I kind of do want to understand what people are saying and how people are viewing this circumstance totally different than me. So I understand why people are like, chill out with all this gun regulation stuff. But I just don't think that they fully understand what we mean when we say regulation, because I don't want to take guns away from people or prevent people from being able to protect themselves. I just really don't want people to be able to go out and murder others because they're having an emotional outburst. So I don't know what the middle ground looks like, but I really need America to figure it out sooner than what we're doing.
We need to focus on conversations about these other root problems and not about what are the details of this shooter particularly, what was his personal background, what was his professional situation, why did he get fired, this and that. Those are all important for the family and for everybody directly involved. But I think for the rest of us, the only thing to really focus on here is that, okay, we have yet another person who, like you said, had problems, and this was the way that they saw to resolve it. And we need to step back. It doesn't matter about this gentleman in particular, because we already have a wide enough trend to step back and analyze. And we really need to work. A lot of the problems we're facing in our country, some of the things we're going to talk about on the podcast today, are really like big level things that we need to step back and assess on a major scale.
Yes.
To figure out the way forward. And so, speaking of way forwards, Forward. So Congress and the president passed legislation to fund the government through September. So that still sounds temporary to me when we're talking about a nation that hopefully will be here for, ever. But,
not hopefully.
well, I mean, look, nations and empires rise and fall all the time. So, but until September, so they don't call that a temporary funding anymore. They call that permanent. And in so doing, Trump did not get the funding that he wanted for the wall. So he's declared a national state of emergency at the border, which basically means he can now use his power to take funding from other places and take military resources and personnel and divert it over there towards this effort. And, like this issue of mass shootings, I think Trump's wall is a symptom of another problem that we're having in this country that we need to really step back and zoom out of and not look at individual people, but the overall pattern. And it's really about this concern that people have about immigration. And to be honest with you, just people who look and sound different than we do. And it's not necessarily specific to white Americans. Other Americans do have this concern too. And we need to step back and really see what is the issue, because Trump, claimed in the State of the Union about El Paso was being one of the most crime-ridden, dangerous cities in the country until they got a wall. That, for the last week after he said that, has been thoroughly debunked by Republicans and Democrats, by everybody all over, by statistics. Like we just have the crime data.
Right.
So that was a flat-out lie. And we have border crossings near record lows right now. Drugs, he talks about drugs, those come in by majority through legal points of entry, through ports or airports, smuggled. So a wall's not going to protect that. It's really just about this fear or hatred or whatever you want to call it for these other people. And we got to now step back from the one immigrant who killed one American that one time.
Right.
And the victims that we highlight, that's a tragedy for that family, and that particular person, whoever did the crime, needs to be held accountable. But that's not really happening at the levels that qualify it as being, an argument for this kind of immigration policy, right? And there's just so many problematic things. I mean, to say nothing of the fact that you had a Republican president, you had a Republican Senate, you had a Republican House of Representatives for 2 years, and they didn't build the wall. And as soon as they lost control of one of those houses, this is when it became an emergency. This is when we had to disrupt the government and shut down 25% of the government. This is when he had to declare a state of emergency. So it's really hard to find any honest argumentation from that side of the table.
Yeah, I don't understand what makes people, or what makes the president really decide to just make up random lies and then to publicly say it as if they can't be fact checked, because this is something that happens very often, and I just don't understand it. Where do these lies come from, and what is the intent behind them? Is it manipulation? Is it really just being misinformed or uneducated? Like, what's happening?
Well, I mean, no doubt it's about manipulation, and there is a lack of information, to be honest with you, because while we live in a time when any information we want is accessible,
right,
we all still have our lives. We're all crazy busy. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We're struggling to pay rent. We got to take care of our family. We want to have a little bit of free time as well. And information doesn't cross our radar, right? So we can't all be aware of everything at any given time. And so I think in a sense, you can almost get away saying whatever you need to say to make your point, whether it's factual or not, in the hopes that that information is going to get to the people you want to hear it. And the contradictory information that proves that it's false won't. And I think it's just you're going to make a calculation and say, you know what, if I say this, it's overall going to be good for me because the people who need to hear it are going to hear it. And all the world of information out there that might contradict what I'm saying, I don't think they're going to get it, or they're going to have a reason to be skeptical about it because they're sympathetic to me anyway. So, I mean, we live in an information age, right? And that doesn't mean we all have all the information we need. It just means that we can honestly get overwhelmed by all the information out there. So, yeah. So it's
right. Oh my God.
I mean, he's a rhetorical, like he's skilled rhetorically. He knows what he can say to get a rise out of the right people in the ways that he wants. I'll give him that. That's a talent he has. So, but I know people, have ideas about job opportunities and income, and to some extent, some people believe that immigrants are coming here being criminals. But I mean, the data shows that on average, researchers have looked into this. On average, immigrants are doing less crime than others, especially if they're illegal, because they know they're already hot. Like, they got to keep a low profile to get by. And that's what most people are probably coming here to do. Like, I just ask myself, why would I leave my country, which according to Republicans and stuff is perfectly fine over there? We don't know why they're leaving. Why would you leave your home country, the only place you've ever known, go hundreds or thousands of miles across the world to like be a stick-up kid?
Right.
Like, why are you going to be robbing people and just like selling nicks and dimes and like
it's a great question, but it happens. It does happen. People do come and travel across borders and seas and lands. And I'm not going to say that their intention is to come and be a stick-up kid, but circumstances can be rough in a new country where you thought that you were going to have these opportunities and you don't. And the next thing you know, it's like you're scratching and surviving. You're hustling. You got to do what you got to do to keep your head above water. I just did the Good Times intro. I'm just No, but seriously, like, you have to do what you have to do to make it. And you become a stick-up kid unintentionally, or you become a guy who's kind of swindling and hustling and, moving and shaking in the city, that big city stereotype. So I don't want to act like it doesn't happen, or I want to acknowledge that it does. But to your point, it's not likely. It is rare, and it's definitely not like, ooh, let's go over there and shake them up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Of course, it happens for understandable reasons. Not to say it's okay that people do that, but yeah, you're totally right, and point taken on that. But the idea that there's just like a massive conspiracy of thousands and millions of people just coming here to do petty crime or to be murderers and drug dealers, like,
these are the people that already live here.
Right. We got enough drug dealers and petty criminals here already. Like there's stiff competition. Why would they come in here? We're good. We've got enough crime.
Got to compete with, gunmen, people that just out here with AK-47s and AR-15s. Yeah. I don't need to go over there to shoot. They already shooting over there.
And then to say nothing of the fact, if you're worried about people coming over here for jobs and things, then where's the conversation about people hiring them, right? If you're here illegally and you want to work, we rarely have a national conversation about the employers, the business owners, who right-wing politics and rhetorics love to big up the business owners.
Yeah.
It's the business owners paying the illegal immigrants who need work, and they got to find it somehow. So why is the conversation not on them?
Yeah.
Well, because they look and sound like us. So we're not going to target our people. We got to target these people, those people coming across into our country and stuff like that. So in the end, a lot of this just comes down to a lot of manipulation and fear and hate.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah. So I got a call this morning from a number I didn't recognize, so I didn't answer it.
Uh-oh.
But unexpected to me, caught me by surprise. I got a text message after, and it was someone I did know. This was surprising because I've been getting a lot of spam calls lately.
Well, Steve, I'm going to tell you the truth. Everybody is about to be getting a lot. And when I say a lot, y'all, you heard it here first. I hope you heard it here first. You're about to get a lot of spam calls because it's been reported that by the mid-year of 2019, 50% of all calls going to cell phones are going to be robocalls as companies like test out their technology and as they're soliciting and advertising. Yeah, you're going to be getting a lot more robocalls this year, and it's not something that's looking like they're planning to stop anytime soon. Already, robocalls are using strategies like calling you. Tell me, because this definitely happens on my phone. You get a phone call, and it's your home area code. Because, everybody's like, oh, what the heck is 365? I don't know this area code. I'm not answering the phone. But now, all of a sudden, all of my calls are from DC area code or from Virginia area code. And I'm like, is this like, did somebody get a new number? Did I lose a contact? And I answer it only to be solicited by some sale. And they don't even have the decency to put a person on the phone. It's some robot like, hey, I'm just returning your call about an inquiry you made. I didn't inquire about anything, you liar. I don't have time to inquire about things. So, and one time, oh my God, I'm such a freak. I got a phone call from myself. It was my name and number. This has happened twice.
What?
I thought that I was calling myself from a parallel universe to give myself a message from the future, but I refused to answer it because I don't talk to demons.
What?
And so, yeah. And then I looked it up and it was like, yeah, if you're getting a phone call from yourself, don't answer it. It's spam and they use it as opportunities to steal your information. Yeah. And I was like, I'm so glad that I believe in parallel universes and would never accept that type of a phone call.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if I saw that, I wouldn't pick up a call from myself, just not knowing what that was. It's definitely not me.
I'm sitting right here. I can
talk to myself right now. I don't
not
need to
calling.
Call, so I'll bring them back later. Yeah. So I saw a few conversations last year of people warning that these scammers were calling and asking, "Is this such and such?" or asking questions that whoever answered the phone would reply with a yes, and then they'd be able to record your voice saying that and use it for identity theft. And so that's one major concern with this. If 50% of cell phone call traffic is going to be either marketing or these robocalls or people trying to do some slick stuff. And so you're going to have to really be on the watch out. And this happened to me in the past 3 months maybe. I start getting 1, 2, 3, 5 calls a day from numbers I don't know. And my phone sometimes identifies it as suspected spam.
Yeah,
and I think because there's
that.
places you can go to report these things, and I guess it goes into databases that help identify.
Yeah.
But it's got to the point now where I have a policy that if I don't recognize the number, I'm just not going to answer it. I'm not even going to consider answering it.
It's really
and
scary.
And if you leave a voicemail, I'll check that. Or if you're going to have to follow up and text message me.
Yeah, text.
But we've all gotten to the point where we don't even notice or check our voicemails
I
now.
don't.
So we might have to have a whole restructuring of social norms once again, where we go back to checking voicemails because it's not even safe to answer phone calls.
Yeah. Well, there are structures in place to kind of combat the number of trick phone calls you receive. I'm getting a lot of this information from a call protection company called First Orion. They're the ones who reported that the number would be up to 50%, but they're saying that they've collected phone call information from over 50 billion calls in the past year. And that's where they got the information okay, over half of the calls being received already are sales calls. And in the next year, they're all actually going to just be robots trying to sell you stuff or spam you. So be careful, y'all.
Yeah. And this is really a serious concern as well, because I know there's also technology that Adobe and maybe some other companies are working on that can edit and manipulate audio.
Yep.
And essentially, from some reporting that I heard, early versions of Adobe, Voco is the project that they're working on. If they have 40 minutes of a person talking, that's enough for their program to then create words that you hadn't ever said in your tone of voice.
Yeah, no, I was reading about that this morning. Like, they can literally take your own voice, and it doesn't have to be like a recording of you saying this word or phrase. They can just take your voice and break the audio sound down to the smallest bite and reorganize them to create whole new words.
Yeah, that the software has never heard you say.
Never heard you say. And I was watching a video where they were using that technology, and I legit... I'm not going to say I couldn't at all tell that it wasn't a real person talking, but I will say I watched for a good 2 minutes before I was like, wait a minute, is this not a real person? Like, it sounded very real.
Yeah, the example I heard was with Key from Key and Peele, right? And he was at this, it was a big presentation for this software, and they were talking about a conversation he had about getting the news that he was nominated for like some kind
whatever
of award. I forget,
yeah.
not a Grammy, but whatever award it was. And he was talking to Peele, and he said, "Oh yeah, first thing I did, I jumped up, I kissed my dogs and my wife." And they said, "Okay, what if he didn't want to say that? What if he said that sounds mean for my wife?" And they demonstrated right on stage how you can switch that.
Oh my God!
And switch the order. And then they said, "But what if we wanted him to say I kissed Jordan?"
Did they change it?
They changed it, and it sounded
real,
slightly different, but believable if you don't have a reason to be listening and skeptical of it. And then they said, what if we have it say, I kissed Jordan 3 times? So it went from I kissed my dogs and my wife to I kissed Jordan 3 times.
And they're going to use that in the court of law and throw you under the jail.
And
I shouldn't go there so fast, but that's just what I think they're going to do with it.
It might be. It's wild because they're also working on video manipulation software to do this as well.
No way. Visual images of me doing things that I've never done before? Is that what you're telling me?
So far, it's more based on facial.
Oh.
So, like, I mean, anybody interested, you can go to futureoffakenews.com. Is a website that...
Steve, that doesn't sound reliable.
No,
Fake
it is.
news?
It is. So there's a podcast called Radio Lab. They've been doing it for a long time. They're good reporters, and they set up this web page to just stand alone to demonstrate a lot of these stories that we're talking about right now. So there's examples of this video manipulation. So they have a video of a speech Obama gave where they took video from a completely different time. Obama was sitting in front of the camera, but were able to manipulate his face to give the speech from a totally different moment in time. And it's pretty believable. But it's still early, so this stuff is wild. So you just got to be careful. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm just not going to answer the phone if I don't already have the number saved. I'm not going to answer it.
Yeah, I already ignore and screen phone calls from my own.
If Geico
friend.
is listening to this, that means no, I haven't heard from you about my claim. So you're going to need to send me a text message or like really reach out because I'm not answering that phone number from you guys that I don't have saved.
Yeah. Lord have mercy. I'm not going to apologize to anybody. Just don't call me. Next.
Let's take a break.
Great.
All right, we'll be right back, and we're going to get into some more exciting news.
While we're on this break, we want to remind you, do not forget to share the podcast. Share it to all of your social media platforms, your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter. Don't forget to use the hashtag #What'sTheDealPod whenever you share anything. And like and subscribe the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen. Thanks for spreading the love. You know we appreciate you.
All right, so we're back. You already know who it is. It's your girl, Jay Callie.
I'm Steve Discourse. Speaking of next, Amazon has broken up on Valentine's Day of all days. So insensitive. Amazon broke up with HQ2 location in New York City.
For you guys who are like me, for you all, who are like me, HQ2 is their second headquarters. Everybody keeps using these slangs that I can't keep up. I'm officially old. And I'm like, what the heck is HQ2 and why is everybody talking about it? Do y'all know I Googled what is HQ2? I Googled it. And I was like, oh, man, yeah, they were doing the 2 headquarters.
This is a perfect example of what I said earlier. So much information that some of it you just miss because you're paying attention to other information.
That's right. Anyway, yeah, so Amazon in November, they announced that they were going to be opening 2 new headquarters. It was a really big deal because Amazon is projected to take over the world, Pinky and the Brain style, one day, and I believe that they're going to successfully do it. Also, I just made that up, so please don't quote it. I love Amazon. Sorry, that was a whole rant. Amazon is opening 2 new headquarters, and one of the major headquarters they were going to do was going to be in New York City, and it was a big deal because New York is trying to revolutionize themselves as like this major tech city and kind of rival with some of the things that are going on in California, and Amazon was like a big stepping stone, and they were requesting like $3 billion. $3 billion. That's almost as much money as Trump is asking for to build the wall, okay? For the Amazon headquarters to be in New York City. So, of course, all the people in New York, well, not all, because there were some people who were like, yeah, tech in the city. This is going to be awesome. But then there were people who were like, first of all, no, we've already been gentrified. We don't have $3 billion for y'all to give to Amazon. Y'all are going to create these jobs, but like, who's really going to be working there? This don't seem like a good idea. So they got a lot of pushback too, and I don't think they were expecting to get that much pushback, and so they finally broke because there's been like protests in the city and people just being very vocal with Mayor de Blasio and just being like, we don't support the idea and we don't know why you make these types of decisions without considering the residents. And so Amazon officially announced that they will no longer be building their headquarters in New York City, and that's like a breaking announcement because it's such a huge deal. It's freaking Amazon.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting for 2 reasons. Usually decisions this big don't seem like there's something that can be just reversed. You'd think once you make this decision, after all the process going into it, it's kind of hard to just reverse course and do an about face.
Yeah.
But that's what they did. Second of all, it's really wild because they had a meeting, representatives for Amazon and some union representatives and local government politicians and leaders and community leaders in Queens.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, according to reports of what happened in the meeting, Amazon was unwilling to relent in any single way, no compromise, no nothing. And
typical.
So they just walked off. And now it is possible that there was some very hardline negotiating going on because what was the representative's name?
Michael Gianaris?
Yeah, Gianaris. So when the Democrats had taken the state legislature, this man was appointed to a committee that now had basically veto power over this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's quite possible he went in there and he was hard-nosed and was like, yo, we need A, B, C, D. We need a whole lot of stuff. Everything you're talking about right now is unacceptable. We don't know how far the counter kind of negotiating tactics went in this meeting, but I think it was really shocking that Amazon, the biggest company in the world, headed by the richest man in the history of human existence,
yeah,
could find no room to negotiate at all. They said, you know what? I ain't got it on me, bruh. I'm getting out of here. Like, we can't, you got nothing to give. You don't have a quarter. You don't have 5 cents.
Right.
Nothing in your pockets, Amazon, to just come up off of that for us a little bit. And I think it kind of speaks to me what is, because I'm sympathetic to the people who are in opposition to this headquarters. And so to me, it speaks to arrogance of that company. How can you be the most successful, lucrative company in the world? How can your owner, Jeff Bezos, be the richest man in the history of human existence?
Yeah.
And you got no space. I mean, you could be giving stuff away. You could just be giving millions and millions of dollars away, cash, throwing it out the windows, you know? And obviously people are going to say, oh, you know, that wouldn't be a good business strategy and things like that, and affect bottom line and stocks. And I get all that, but the amount of money and success is unfathomable. And you got no room to negotiate.
Yeah.
I think is nuts. And so, like you said, you know, the issue of gentrification in cities is already a problem with a lot of people moving in. Housing prices rise. It's being well reported for the last year or two or maybe longer that the subway system in New York is under real strain. It's getting very old and obsolete. So there's a lot of concerns that all this development and growth is going to bring. And then when you bring Amazon in there with 25,000, 30,000 jobs, the people living in that city are not just going to get new jobs at Amazon now.
Right.
That city is going to go from these 100,000 or however many people's in that city to basically
it's
a
going to be a
completely
whole new
different city.
It's going to be so many people that move into New York specifically to work at Amazon and to be close.
And many of those
close
people,
to their headquarters.
many of those people are going to be pushed out because they can't afford it, or jobs change and things like that. And I think those are very serious things to consider. Because we have these conversations a lot of times only with the priority of the economy. What is the growth going to do in jobs, in business, and all this and that? But we don't ever stop and think there are other things that are also important to people's lives and well-being and society, and we don't give those a fair shake in these kind of conversations. We say, what are you talking about? It's going to bring so much money to the area. Well, okay, but if all the people in the area that you're selling this on get forced out because they can't afford to live here, then all that money in the area did no good for the people that you're pitching it to, and these are serious considerations.
I have a question. And I don't know if you're going to be prepared to answer it, but I'm going to put you on the spot anyway. Didn't Amazon recently announce, maybe a year ago, that they were going to open up like a big headquarters or maybe just a new location in Washington, D.C.?
This was HQ2.
So what's
locations.
going? I thought that it.
2 locations.
So is it actually going to be in
Crystal
Arlington,
City.
Virginia?
Down
So
in Crystal City, yeah.
Oh, because everybody was like, it's going to be in D.C., but then I kept reading that it was in Virginia, and I was like, so is there going to be one in Virginia and D.C.?
Yes.
So it's not actually in D.C., it's going to be in Crystal City, which is on the outskirts of the city.
Yeah.
Got it.
Which they
makes sense.
rebranded. It's like National Landing now. It's not Crystal City anymore.
Well, it's Crystal City to me, and it always will be.
Yeah.
But okay, thank you.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. You know, I'm sympathetic to people who aren't necessarily going to see the benefits of this.
Mm-hmm.
There are benefits, but there are costs. And just because something is going to be lucrative doesn't mean overall it's a good thing. I mean, unless you talk to Steve Harvey, because he apparently doesn't mind selling out his integrity to get that
stop.
money.
We're not doing this. Save that for your Facebook rants. We're not doing that today.
Okay, that's true. We didn't plan to talk about that. Steve Harvey and Monique had a great conversation recently.
I'm not mad at Amazon. Amazon's going to have to do something extremely racist to make me upset. If you have something racist, then you can share it down. But I personally am giving Amazon all of my dollars and coins.
All right.
Okay, I thought you were going to have something.
No,
all right, I'm in the clear.
I'm
in the clear. I'm going to online shop.
For right now, as far as stuff like that is concerned, yeah, they're in the clear. So, we've said enough. Do we have other stories?
Perfect transition.
What can I say? I'm smooth by nature.
Okay, thank you, Chris Tucker. We promised y'all last week that we were going to come back and talk to y'all about the Green New Deal. I'm going to be honest, I got a lot of questions because I'm not 100% sure what it is. So, Steve Discourse, break it down for me. What is the Green New Deal?
So, all right. Generally speaking, real broad, is a roadmap that says the government, the United States government, acknowledges the risks and causes of climate change and the fact that it's there and the impacts that it can have. And then once you get down halfway through this resolution, it says, now, given that we're acknowledging all that, these are the steps we can take to combat it.
Okay. So it's basically just like a 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, maybe 50, 51, 52, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So what are some of the points? Like, what are they trying to do?
So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is coming at this from the perspective that this is such a massive problem facing our country, facing the world, but facing our country for terms of this New Deal resolution. And we can fight it by changing our economy, essentially, right? We can create jobs in renewable energy sectors and in all these ways that will not only contribute to slowing down climate change, right, and combating it, but also is going to be a huge economic benefit to Americans overall.
What's going to be the benefit? Because it just sounds like someone asking us, can we do this? Can we do that? Connect that for me, please.
So in this resolution, she acknowledges things like, wages since 1970s have stagnated. We haven't overall been getting raises because inflation has been keeping up pace with everything. So we're not earning more than we were in the 70s, if that makes sense.
we're probably earning less, but I'm making that up. Keep going.
Compared to what like rent and everything
Right,
costs.
that's what I mean.
Right, so we get more dollars per hour at work maybe, but the cost of everything has risen, so it's not like we're doing much better. So she talks about the idea, since the Great Recession, 91% of economic gains have gone to 1% of our population.
Yeah, I feel like that's something. Yeah.
Right? So she's acknowledging these things, the gender gap in earnings, racial wealth divide. She says all these issues facing our country, by creating jobs and orienting our economy to work in a way that combats climate change, we can reduce all these problems.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Is that the answer you're looking for?
It's clear because I understand what she's saying or what they're saying, whoever else co-authored this with her. It's not clear because I don't directly see the connection. Maybe I need to read this document myself whenever I find the time to do that. But like jobs and gender wage gaps and climate change, the connection is real fuzzy for me right now. I'm not going to lie. What is she talking about?
So we need to combat the climate change.
Right.
And if it's being caused by emissions, by using fossil fuels and things like that, if it's being made worse because we have so much plastics and we create so much waste and trash that it's changing our environment, we need to do things differently to reduce those emissions, to reduce the waste that we're creating.
Okay.
And in changing the way our economy works to reduce all of those, we can create the jobs to do that in ways that will reduce racial wealth gaps and all these other things. So if we want to incentivize the creation of solar power or wind power, we can create those companies and those jobs with these other issues in mind, with the idea that women don't get paid a dollar for dollar that men do. So when we're creating these jobs, let's be purposeful in these new industries that we're creating to close that gender gap, to close the racial wealth divide. So that's her idea, is that these are going to lead to jobs and a huge economic boom. It is going to give people opportunities. And if we do it the right way, it will give people who have had less opportunities more and equal opportunities. And we can start addressing a lot of those things.
Well, this is something that they've clearly put a lot of thought into because it's spiraling down a lot deeper than I expected it to go. Like, these connections are there for sure. Because thank you for breaking that down for me. I see it. I would have never gotten to the point where I was thinking about it in that way or where I was able to directly connect it. But I understand now. I really want to know how America, the United States of America, has been a standing nation for this long without having this type of a deal already in place. I just feel like this is something that we've been talking about forever. So how is this just being introduced in Congress?
I mean, so Trump took us out of the Paris Climate Accord.
Of course,
right?
He doesn't believe in climate change.
Which was signed on by every country in the world.
Literally.
And so now we're not there. And this is an attempt to get the federal government to, on paper, acknowledge it and have a plan going forward. It's a loose plan, so it doesn't create an agency. It doesn't create a job. It doesn't do anything specific, but it's a guiding principle in a way, right? It's like, okay, how can we do this in a way that is not going to exploit communities in the United States who've already been exploited, who've already been disadvantaged, right? So that's why it's really big, is she's not only saying we have to acknowledge this, and you know what, I'm getting away from the point that you're asking, how have we not had this already,
how is this
right?
a new thing?
Because money.
Really? Really?
Money, yeah. So there's too much money.
And power.
There's too much money on the line for the powers that be, so to speak. The automotive industry is one of the biggest industries in the country. If we need to reduce emissions and we want to start doing, they're moving towards electric, so that's good, but they resisted that for a very long time.
Yeah.
If we want to get off of fossil fuels, I mean, one of the major things we talk about in national politics is, where are we getting oil from? Are we going to wars to get oil, to make countries more favorable so that we can get better oil? Are we going to drill up in the Arctic and around Alaska? Are we going to drill offshore in California and Massachusetts and things like that, or wherever it's available? That's a big lobby in this country. So the companies that are already rooted and have a legacy in this country are resistant to this, because if we say, solar power, then the gas and the coal mining, all that is going to be resistant to it, right? Because it threatens their existence.
Right.
So that's why we haven't had this yet, because of the money. There's a money influence, and people can't say, look, we need to fight climate change. They're going to say, well, yeah, but what about, I got a pretty good gig going on over here. You want to fight climate change, but what about a coal industry? What about a coal industry?
No,
What's that got to do with us?
Oh my God. It's just crazy that, first of all, that we're having this conversation right now. And secondly, that somebody recently sat down to draft this up, because I was in first or second grade when I started learning about the impact of fossil fuels on the environment and on climate and, the hole in the ozone layer, which I guess we've now fixed or whatever. But I was such a young child when these types of conversations started happening. So to think that they didn't actually ever make it to Congress until Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is insane, and this is the most liberal thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm just gonna say that.
The hole in the ozone, we closed that back up because we stopped using the aerosol spray cans as much.
I know.
That effort back then about that worked because we changed what we did overall, and that's what this is trying to do, is to say, look, there are a number of steps we can take to acknowledge the problem and the causes, and in addressing them, the solutions can have benefits for people who need benefits, right? If we have a homelessness problem in the United States, when we create jobs and programs to fight climate change, we can make sure we build these programs to address homelessness as well, right? So it's a massive whole nationwide scale to address climate change, and we can use it to also do good for people who need, like Flint, right? For instance.
Yeah.
They still are dealing with this lead water crisis, right?
Yep.
We can address those things in the solutions that she's laid out here. So while fighting climate change, you draw in this other language, and it all gets done in one fell swoop.
Yeah, in one thing. I look forward to seeing where this goes. I'm going to hope and pray that it comes out positively for, this bill just works out. I don't have a lot of faith in it currently, because I'm liberal. I'm so liberal, and I'm listening to you talk about this, and I'm like, this is so liberal. This is so millennial. The language and what we're hoping to change, it just sounds like something that Republicans are going to be extremely resistant to. It just does.
Yeah, and they probably will be. I mean, the wild thing is, it's not even that long. It's not a lot of language, and if you read it, I mean, there's really nothing controversial, nothing extreme in there.
I don't think it's controversial.
Some of the most extreme things in there is, for one, completely getting onto 100% renewable energy. Mm-hmm. And it's okay, 100% completely, wow, that's a strong jump from where we are. So I get that might seem unattainable or totally unrealistic for, again, some of the lobbying interests that are out there. And I believe there was somewhere in there about using this funding to train workers, which will then all include funding for the education itself, so people aren't going into greater student debt. And I can see how that may freak people out, because there's already a resistance to this free college idea that's floating out there. But otherwise, in reality, anybody who reads this, and you can just Google Green New Deal resolution, and you can go to congress.gov, and it's right there. And if you read it, it'll take you 30 minutes to read through this. The language is very regular and plain. There's nothing crazy that would scare any normal human being. But when you insert politics and economic interests from these lobbyists and these industries in there, that's when it starts to sound crazy. But I'm sorry, if your only opposition to doing things to fight climate change is because you got a pretty sweet gig rolling over here and you don't want your money to stop, I ain't got any time for that.
Can you say the website again? What is it?
Congress.gov.
Okay.
So if you look for the Green New Deal resolution. Oh, actually, it's Resolution 109. Yeah, you found it. See, It was that easy. It was that easy. You just flip through it here, look, and skim through it. Don't read all of it because it's a lot of details. Maybe you're not interested. But if you read half of these bullet points, you'll get the deal. And you're not going to miss anything that's also establish a communist dictatorship. Right? There's nothing in there like that.
I'm going to read the whole thing to fact check you on that, because I don't want to play.
We can come back next week and you can tell me if there was anything controversial other than just saying, climate change is a real ass thing. And if we're going to solve it, we can also solve all these other problems like poverty in the United States as well at the same time. So, see, it's not that long. She just said it. Can you say that again on the record?
Yeah, it's not that long.
See?
Just like that.
So check it out. Oh, man, I think we've covered it all for this week.
Yep. I'm going to concur.
I'm Steve Discourse.
It's Jay Callie.
That's the deal.
All right, people, thanks so much for tuning in another week. What's the Deal podcast?
You can follow us on social media
At Steve Discourse.
and you can catch Jay Callie.
It's Jay Callie, ITSJAYCALLI.
We got to send a big shout out to Clifford Cartel for composing our theme music. And wherever you listen to this, make sure you subscribe.
Family, subscribe.
Write us a review.
Share the podcast. Subscribe to it wherever you listen.
Share it with your friends, family, your loved ones. Heck, share it with your enemies. We don't care. Just help us spread that word. We truly appreciate it.